Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of Wildcat Week. I'm Roger Alcock. The men's soccer team finished their regular season in the Crossroads League and earned a third-place finish in the league tournament, or a third-place seed, that is. They faced off against the sixth-place seed, that's the Goshen College Maple Leafs, who they just beat 2 nights ago in a 2-0 game a couple weeks ago. It wasn't the same result, however, in this quarterfinal match as the Wildcats gave up an early goal to Goshen in the 8th minute. They were able to tie it up in the first half off a goal by Sammy Conti in the 21st minute, but then in the second half, the Maple Leafs were able to take a 2-1 lead and hold on to that lead. Goshen got the 2-1 win, capitalizing twice on only 3 shots on goal, but they advanced to the Crossroads League semifinals. Well, looking back on the Wildcats' final regular season match, they played up in Fort Wayne against St. Francis. The Cougars up in Fort Wayne, the Wildcats took a quick 2-0 lead in the first half with goals by Jeremy Baldus in the 5th minute and Luis Racha in the 17th minute. The Wildcats did give up a second half goal to the Cougars, but they were able to hold on to the 1-goal lead and the victory. The Wildcats finished the Crossroads League regular season with that 2-1 win over St. Francis. Well, now joining me to talk about, well, this season and this postseason matches, men's assistant soccer coach Josh Kremers. And Kremers, thanks for joining us, filling in for Coach Sanford. We wish we were talking about a win, though, I guess.
Yeah, we definitely do. We definitely went into last night with a lot of confidence. Obviously, beating them last week 2-0 helped us walking into that game. The weather didn't really work in our favor. It was rainy, it was cold, conditions were tough, and as you said, Goshen got up to a 1-0 lead, and fortunately we were able to tie it going into the half. Just gave up an early goal in the second half, and we're behind the 8 ball from there.
I was going to ask you about the fact that, as we mentioned, you played Goshen in a really important regular season contest just about a week and a half ago, beat them, and that was a really, a real boost for this team. Got you guys secured a spot in the upper half of the conference standings. But I don't know if that inspired Goshen, but I know they came out very physical in this game.
They did. Yeah, I'm sure that had a part to play in it. Their coach is very vocal. He gets his team riled up, and from the get-go, they came at us. They had 2 hard tackles in the first minute, and actually got a yellow card in the first minute, and kind of set the tone for how they were going to play.
Well, as we take a look at some of the first half highlights, again, just before that 8-minute mark, Goshen gets lead. And here's the thing, sometimes stats tell a story of the game, and sometimes they don't. And this is one that will drive you crazy because the Wildcats outshoot Goshen 14-5. 6-3 with shots on goal, but yet Goshen is able to capitalize early. And when they got that 1-0 lead, it kind of put you behind the 8 ball a little bit.
It definitely did. It was tough, and that's kind of been the story of our season. We've outplayed most of the teams we've been in games with, and we outshoot them. Unfortunately, we've given up some soft goals, and this was a tough one, but fortunately we were able to grab a goal maybe 10-15 minutes later and make it more of an even game.
Well, speaking of that first goal for the Wildcats, the only goal, Sammy Conti got that goal, and Glauber Olivia was the man on the assist. But those guys have played really well for you all season long, though. Sammy and Glauber, they've been highlights for this team.
They definitely have. I mean, Glauber was the offensive player of the conference. Sammy was first team all-conference, deservingly so, and those guys came up big in that moment. We were able to put us back in a game that was maybe about to get out of hand.
So at the half, it's tied up at 1 apiece. So you're thinking, okay, we're back in this one, a whole new contest here in the second half. But again, what about the 53rd minute, they get a goal, and credit them. Somehow they take advantage of the couple opportunities they had, and it's them taking advantage and maybe a defensive breakdown or a letdown.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, they came out in the second half. I think they knew they were on the back foot, and unfortunately, there was maybe a no call that was missed, but at the same time, they took advantage of a break opportunity, and it's slick out there. The ball skipped past us, and they were in on goal.
So now, down 2-1, you've got to press a little bit. I mean, you got to make something happen, and just couldn't find that that goal that would have, tied things up and maybe sent things in overtime.
Yeah, that was tough for us. I mean, we pushed pretty hard. Again, I think the conditions were a little difficult for us. We got frantic. We had some young guys in the game. I still think we had the better opportunities, and we had the chances late in the game. Could have taken one back. Unfortunately, couldn't find the net, even though we had a good couple shots on frame. Unfortunately, they were right at the goalie both times.
Yeah.
So.
Your goalkeeping in this game really wasn't that bad, though, was it?
No, it wasn't. Andrew Wick has played really well for us down the stretch in conference, and last night it was tough. I mean, the two really good opportunities that they had, they put them away, and not much else he could have done on both of those. I think they were kind of defensive breakdowns as a team. Well,
we wanted to put just a real quick cap on some of the things for this season.
Sure.
6-2-1 in the regular season of the conference. That was definitely a highlight. A number 3 seed going into the tournament. A 5-game win streak in the middle of that. You beat Taylor in the regular season. You beat Bethel. You beat Goshen. 3 very quality wins in the conference. So there were definitely some great things about this regular season or this season in general.
Yeah, there were. I mean, we kind of found our stride right at the end of the season there in conference. It was nice to have a 5-game win streak. Really thought we were on the rise there. Thought we were kind of peaking at the right moment. Unfortunately, in the game of soccer, not always the best team wins, and sometimes last night can happen. And unfortunately, it was a winner-take-all game.
Last thing real quick, Coach. The next game, the good news, you're still in play, but it's a little bit up in the air right now.
It is. We're kind of waiting on some other teams in the region. It's NCCAAs, and so we're waiting on teams like Grace and a couple other schools in the area to finish up their seasons. Obviously, if they move on, then we'll play somebody else, but kind of waiting on that in the next week and a half.
Well, Coach, hey, thanks for filling in. Thanks for stopping by. Maybe we'll see some other time here on Wildcat
I'm
Week.
hoping so, yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk some women's soccer as Olivia Schmidt, one of the Wildcats, will be here to talk about their Crossroads League quarterfinals, so don't go away. Well, welcome back to Wildcat Week. Well, the women's soccer team, they were kind of seemingly mirroring the men's team as they also finished third in the Crossroads League, and they hosted the quarterfinal matchup against 6th place Taylor University in the league tournament. Well, unfortunately, the similarities continues as the Wildcats couldn't get the victory on Wednesday night. It was a scoreless game going into the second half until the 63rd minute. Taylor scored their first goal, and then again their second goal coming in the 76th minute. The 2-0 loss to the Trojans ends the Wildcats Crossroads League tournament play. However, the regular season ended on a more positive note as the Wildcats went up to Fort Wayne to take on the Cougars of St. Francis back on Saturday the 28th. Wildcats started their scoring very early. Alexis Garcia scoring her first goal of the night in the 6th minute. Wasn't even 4 minutes later, she scored again to give the Wildcats a 2-0 lead. And then just 8 minutes in the half, the Wildcats just totally take control of this game. Less than 3 minutes after that, the Wildcats' lead was 3-0 when Tia Sanford scored after having assisted on the first 2 goals. The first half scoring was rounded out with a goal from Madison Abbott in the 29th minute. The Wildcats weren't done though. However, in the second half, Olivia Schmidt scored in the 57th minute, giving the Wildcats the final score of 5-0 in that game. And as we said, they capped their regular season with a big victory against St. Francis. Well, joining me now is Olivia Schmidt, who we just mentioned a moment ago, sophomore here on the Wildcat women's soccer team. And Olivia, kind of like the guys, before we get into the highlights of the quarterfinal match against Taylor, really finished the regular season on a high, playing well, scoring a lot of goals. I would imagine your team felt pretty good going into tournament play.
Yeah, we were really confident going in. Earlier in the regular season when we played Taylor, we tied them 1-1. So we had some confidence going in. We knew we had some quality chances against them, but unfortunately we just didn't capitalize.
I don't know, still kind of relatively a young team. Like you said, I was going to ask you about, in the regular season, tied Taylor at 1-1, but I know Coach told me earlier that that's a game you felt, and we had some missed opportunities. We definitely could have won that game. Yeah. I think you respected Taylor, but you thought this is a game we could win, should win, because we are the 3rd seed in this contest.
Yeah, we were the 3rd seed going against the 6th seed, so obviously you always have some confidence going in because we got that 3rd seed and we deserved it. So, yeah, we outplayed them in both games, in my opinion, but they capitalized, especially yesterday, and we didn't.
Well, as we're going to take a look at some of the highlights from this game, and what you said is kind of the key in terms of like capitalizing on opportunities, because that's what they did. Now, the first half, it's a scoreless half, and we're going to see a lot of first half highlights. Back and forth, they're peppering you guys with shots. You guys are getting some shots on goal, but I did want to ask you, no excuses, but I mean, the weather, it could not have been a fun game to play in.
It's not always fun, but I've played in a lot of rainy, cold games, being from Buffalo.
I was just going to say.
And, yeah.
You're from Buffalo, New York. You may have played in some snow.
Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of my high school playoff games were in snow. But, yeah, the weather wasn't ideal, but obviously we were both out there. Both teams were dealing with it, so it's not really an excuse.
How important would it have been, or is it, in a game like this, to score first, to maybe get some momentum going, to get on top? Neither team scored in the first half, but that first goal is huge, isn't it?
Oh yeah, in every game, and especially with the weather. It's really hard to score. It's really hard to like move the ball with the rain. It skips a lot, so your touches are off. So yeah, it's definitely big to get that first goal in any game.
I think Coach Kremers mentioned a little bit talking about the guys is when they got down against Goshen, when teams panic or force things a little bit, then you actually don't get the scoring opportunities you need by moving the ball well and being patient.
Yeah, exactly. You get impatient, you just see that time clicking down more and more, so you're just running out of time. And unfortunately, you have less opportunities a lot of the time.
Then, speaking of that, I asked that because in the second half, Taylor was able to get that goal in the 63rd minute. There was time, but all of a sudden the pressure is on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I said, the time is clicking down. You get more nervous that your season's going to end, and unfortunately, that just played in a little immaturity as a team, which we have to get better at. Well,
they got the first goal, and this is going to be the picture of their first goal. There in the 63rd minute, they get that goal, and it's 12 minutes later. Now you guys have to, maybe take a few more chances, and you give up the second goal in the 75th minute. And at that point, it's trouble. Yeah,
definitely trouble at that point. But at that point, we also just had to try to go for a goal, because if you lose 2-0 or 3-0, it doesn't matter. It's just a loss, and you go home. So we tried to get those goals, but unfortunately came up short.
Well, the good news is there's still some soccer left to be played. We have the NCCAA Midwest Regionals coming up, and again, that game will be to be announced yet, who will play and where that will be. But after a tough loss, this is still a young team who's had a great regular season, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there is a chance to say, hey, let's finish this out on a strong note.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our next goal, is to go down to Florida and win the Christian National Tournament, and on a high note, and just get some more experience for our team together.
Let's talk really quick about the regular season.
Yeah.
12 wins overall, 12 only 3 losses and 3 ties. So, a very good regular season. 5-3, 2 ties in the conference. Actually 5-2-1, I think, in the regular season. So 5-2-1. A 3rd seed, and we had some pretty good soccer teams in this conference, of course. Spring Arbor and others. So Marion had a really solid season. Taylor, of course, the Wildcats. So a lot to build on from this season, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It just gives us confidence, chemistry with our other teammates, and we have 3 seniors, which is obviously a huge loss for us, but everyone else is going to return next year, and I think it's so much to build on, yeah.
Last question, what does the off season, even though there's some soccer left to be played, what does the off season look like? What does that training regimen look like?
It's definitely a lot. I coming in last year as a freshman, I didn't realize how rigorous it is. But in the spring, we have almost the whole semester of 6 a.m. practices, weightlifting, which is really big for us in the off season because it's hard to do in the regular season. But yeah, it's great.
Well, Olivia, we want to say thanks for joining us on the show. It's great to have you here, all the way from Buffalo.
All the way.
And sorry about the tough loss, but we're looking forward to hearing about some great things coming up yet in the postseason.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, when we come back, women's basketball, they have started their season with a very exciting, epic comeback, so you don't want to miss that. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to Wildcat Week. The women's basketball team played their season opener at Cornerstone University on October 31st. Now, in that game, in the first half, the Wildcats were down at one point by 18 points, but they kept battling their way back in this one, and the Wildcats end up winning this huge ball game. Well, they started out quick, though, a 6-0 start, and Nicole Ignashik getting the early basket. Janae Godwin pushes the ball in transition, and Carly Lang hits the three. Now, during the second half, the team got a spark from the senior Anna Imhoff, who drove to the basket, getting whatever shot she wanted on the night. Then freshman Dayton Groniger, she came off the bench, collected 3 threes. All 3 of her attempts were down in the second half for Dayton. And at the end of the game, so back-to-back threes you just saw by Katie Key end up giving the Wildcats the lead and ultimately the victory. The team came together to pull off the win by a final score of 74-70. The Wildcats over Cornerstone. Now, the Wildcats were led by senior Anna Imhoff, who had 21 points and 5 assists. Sophomore Carly Lang had a double-double, the first double-double of her career, 13 points and 10 rebounds. Freshman Dayton Groniger, 13 points and 4 rebounds, as we said, coming off the bench. Well, joining me now to talk about the start of a new season and a new coaching staff is the head coach of the Wildcats, Coach Ethan Whaley, and all the excitement, Coach, of a new team, a new job, and all this stuff. And your first game, you're down by 18. What are you thinking at that point?
Man, where did I go wrong? You know, we started off great. We got up 6-0, and then they went on a 19-0 run just to kind of finish out that first quarter. I just remember feeling helpless because it's like I look at our staff. It's like we've not done this in practice. This is not who we've shown to be up to this point. So it didn't make sense why we were playing this way. But you know, we regrouped in the second half. We talked at halftime about who we are. We got to get back to what our foundation is, which is just being tough and rebounding the basketball. And once we did that, you and I talked about already, our defense led to our offense.
Well, and as you take a look at those points scored by each team, by quarter, it's a total flip-flop in terms of the first quarter you gave up 20 points, the third quarter you gave up 11, 15 in the fourth quarter. And again, defense was the key to this victory as we're going to take a look at some highlights here. But admittedly a slow start. Well, you got 6-0 lead, but then trouble ensues.
Yeah, definitely. You see here, we started off early. We wanted to go to Nicole Ignashik, and she delivered early on.
She's so strong.
So strong, so physical. If she gets positioned down there, she's tough to move out of the way.
What's so funny for those of us who know Nicole, off the court, I mean, probably the kindest, sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. But on the court, she's not afraid to play some power basketball.
She'll bang around with you a little bit. You're right. It's kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Off the court is one thing, but when she gets on the court, it's all business.
There you see the three there. But you had talked about Cornerstone goes on that big run. And the good news, it was early in the game. I got to imagine, though, at some point there's got to be a little bit of a sense of urgency or a little bit of a panic there in the players, and you just have to calm down. And there's no 1 or 2 possessions you're going to get that back. You have to just start over and do it 1 possession at a time, don't you?
Sure. You know, somebody that on the stat sheet, she's not going to get any credit, but is our senior point guard, Brittany Washington.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she spoke up in halftime, said, look, we're not going to get this back on 1 shot. Mm-hmm. We got to chip away. And Brittany finished the game with 2 points, 1 assist. But I tell you what, we keep track of hockey assists.
Yeah.
And I think she finished the game with 5 or 6 hockey assists, and she was a calming effect on our team. And while Anna really filled it up there, as you see.
Yeah, now we're in the second half.
Yeah.
And you said she's got to shoot the ball. She had 5 assists in the first half, but what, only 3 points?
Yeah. We went into halftime, we looked at the stats, and we just said Anna has to be more involved. So we tried to do a better job of putting her in positions to make plays. So right there, we kind of started setting some ball screens with her and letting her work in space, and she obviously produced.
Well, she finishes with 21 points on the ball game, and there's the great look and the great feed up ahead and the layup, and now, I mean, like we said, it's a total departure from the first half. It's the Wildcats who are on the run, who are hitting big shots, who have the momentum, and I thought the key was in that third quarter, as I was at home listening to the ball game, and you could feel that momentum change. Sometimes teams get the momentum, even take a lead, and then they kind of take their foot off the gas. You guys didn't do that.
Sure. At the end of the game, we called a timeout. Cornerstone would call a timeout. And the word that you kept hearing in our huddle was, we have to finish. We have to finish. And with that mindset, again, the seniors were leading that charge of, we will not let this slip away. We're going to finish this game. I think it just became contagious, and Katie Key had no doubt, no fear shooting that rock. Dayton Groninger didn't have any fears. And it was just a collective effort that really was led by our seniors.
Saw those 2 consecutive threes by Katie Key. Glad those made it into the highlights, because those were huge shots right there, weren't they?
Sure. We just saw that play by Carly Lang. I think that was with about 44 seconds left. We were only up 1, I believe, at that point, and that's when I turned to the bench and said, we're going to win, because that's a tough play. That's a championship play that we talked about.
We talked about the 21 from Anna Imhoff, Carly Lang, the 13 points, the 10 rebounds. That sophomore is going to be, I think, a special player here for the Wildcats. The freshman, Dayton Groninger, 13 points and 12 from Nicole Ignatiuk. But I think Dayton showed early that she's maybe not just a first-game freshman. She's got some skills that she can play right away and contribute right away.
Yeah. Dayton's somebody, she's a freshman. She don't play like a freshman. She doesn't act like a freshman. She certainly doesn't lead like a freshman. I'm really proud of the way that she's grown. She's not perfect. We're still trying to get her to talk a little bit more and play a little more physical on defense. But you know what? She competes as hard as anybody, and I just loved her effort and her grit.
Well, you just said a key word, compete, because this weekend you guys are going to really have to compete against 2 extremely good basketball teams in Lindsey Wilson and IU East. You guys got a big weekend. You'll find out a lot about yourselves, won't you, this weekend?
Yeah. It's no rest at all. After we play the number 8 team in NAIA Division I in Lindsey Wilson, we follow up the next night with IU East, who I think won 30 games last year. They were ranked number 13 coming into the preseason. So we're going to be battle tested moving into conference, and that's the way we like it.
All right. Well, Coach, again, congratulations on that first victory, one of what we hope is many. And thanks for joining us on Wildcat Week. Good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it, Raj. Thanks for having me.
All right. As we said, next up for the Lady Wildcats, they'll be playing in the IU East Classic in Richmond, Indiana at the Richmond High School Tiernan Center. Friday the 3rd, they will be the home team against Lindsey Wilson out of Kentucky. That game time is 7 p.m. Excuse me. And then on the 4th, they'll take on IU East at 4 p.m. Well, that's all we have for you on this episode of Wildcat Week. If you'd like to see more of Wildcat Week, you can visit our website, wiwtv.com. There you can watch past episodes and connect with us online. Again, that is wiwtv.com. And you can stay connected with all our local programming by subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's WIWTV51. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. So for all of us here, thanks for watching.